Welcome back to Decentralized Nutritional Science in the frameworks and context of structural inaccessibility. So far, for however number of years now that readers may or may not realize that this author have preferentially been utilizing the third-person perspective way of presenting himself towards his audiences, both in the writing of its parent manuscript, its technical accompanying manuscript, as well as obviously the YouTube channel presentations such as this, and more beyond that, and more prior to this. For the reason being, as such, that it is a way of maintaining and establishing cognitive self-reappraisals. Main reason: cognitive reappraisal. This is not just a way of self-platforming or a formal way of self-presentation, but of all things, a self-reframe of all negative experiences in a lateral light. To put it very bluntly, one might think of this as a self-coping mechanism amidst all episodic stress and/or trauma. However, in order for the readers who are new and are seemingly foreign to all of this, it may be better for us all to take a step back and to present, first and foremost, a reminder on the themes and/or context of discussions that these initiatives have been imploring all along. This concept initiative talks about all manners of decentralized nutritional principles in the context and lens of structural violence, in which that of course already sounds and widely deemed as already that as being depressing, nihilistic, or just purely unmotivational. But we have to ask ourselves this question: when the time comes when we wish to share with others one's own struggles, hardships, and/or experiences, whatever the case may be, which one of this format of expressions that sounds more punishing or more painfully memorable? Is it the first-person perspective or the third-person perspectives? So in this case, we're going to be displaying one example of a script readout, just going to be taken as of a fictional sample with some, again, semblance array of hardships and experiences that such and such mirrors this author's own experiences, and see which one do you readers think is the more reappraising. Is it the first person or the third person? We shall see. First person perspective. Throughout all my years, I have experienced depressions, and consequently, throughout all this time, I have also been unable to communicate and thus inability to express myself fluently. At the same time, I have also been diagnosed with various health conditions that I do not wish to disclose. I thank you for reading through my short disclosure, and I look forward to hear back from you. Sincerely yours, A.W. Now, third-person perspective. Throughout many years, this author have experienced many hardships, depressions, and personal malaises. Alongside that also, communication or cognitive difficulties for which he is unable to, at times, expressing himself fluently to the public. This author also admitted he has had various health conditions, but for the sake of privacy, he decides not to share them. Therefore, thank you for reading this disclosure, and that your unconditional positive regard will be much anticipated and appreciated. Kindest regards, A.W. Which one do you think is more self-dignified? Is it the first-person perspective or the third-person perspective? Arguably speaking, chances are it is the third-person perspective that wins, or at least be the most relevant for use in this regard. Next criteria question. Which one is less self-destructive? Once again, chances are, and in respect to its context, third-person perspective still remains the most relevant in this regard. And then third and lastly, of all questions or criteria, which one of these is less self-internalized? Is it the first-person perspective or the third-person perspective? Once again, chances are, having some thought into this, chances are third-person perspective, once again, is arguably more relevant for us to use in this regard. So what seems to be the mechanism of distinct differences here? Well, it lies in not just obviously the usage of third-person view and perspective, but chiefly in its way of anchoring oneself with that of an aspiration. Hint, very important here, the very word aspiration, or an ideal reference taking place perhaps at present, in the past, or a forecast somewhere or sometime in the near future. Using this author, this as in referring to him, and then followed by an aspirational anchoring point. There is a title, whether it is an aspirational, a job title, or just simply an aspirational reference marker, whether there is a marker of ideal, once again, an ideal aspiration, whether there is taking place in the past, at present, or likely for motivational sake in the near future. So in this disadvantage section, of course, there is always going to be some people who would actually disagree with the usage of third-person perspective. And yes, they are also not entirely incorrect. And in fact, and in actuality, indeed, this author would therefore like to sincerely apologize, because third-person formatting perspectives of communication may be extremely difficult, and for them, it may even represent to them a mental acrobat. So once again, this author may only wish to say that in the interest from his own self-copy mechanism, to put it bluntly speaking once again, he would apologize that in a manner of speaking that respects both his circumstances in a way of, for him to maintain his dignity, remains an individual right and capacity, therefore, for anyone, including this author, to find out however ways that reciprocates empathy. That nevertheless is the reason why this author still remains preferentially at using third-person formatting perspectives. It is quite disappointing to find that people often also stigmatize such individuals who actually have to resort to such self-copying mechanism and or way of expression simply because of the fact that they feel different. Simply for the fact that they may feel disenfranchised or felt as though that he or she is the odd one of the pack. So this video is not meant to be a review paper or review presentation of various studies out there, but the research studies briefly suggest that, unfortunately, the usage of third-person addressing or third-person communication way of expression may not be favorable in, or may not be viewed as consistently of an improvement, or it may not be helpful in all case studies and research papers. Whatever the case may be, all these things, under the humble opinion of this author, remains nevertheless an individual onus meaning an existential duty of the self to reclaim his or her own scientific autonomy. All in all, all this initiative talks about everything that is quite harmful, depressing, debilitating, and as well as also in general sense quite unmotivational. Indeed, if readers are still fixated to such semantic dismissals, they are welcome to do so. However, keeping in mind that the many pragmatic principles that this concept initiative offers, nevertheless, under the humble opinion of this author, should never be discarded. That wraps and concludes this entire rationale as to why the reasoning behind the usage of third-person perspective and or communication way of expression throughout this concept initiative, ever since its early beginnings throughout 2015, 2016, and all the way to this very day. It remains arguably, however, therefore, as a disclosure once again, that in conjunction to our recent rebranding notice, as described up above, there may yet be a need for this author to make significant alterations just for the sake of maintaining and conforming to accessibility in terms of readership as well as viewership accessibility. So sadly, this way of communication expression methodology or principle may not be consistently retained in the next rebranding of Nutrition Humility, in which there is something that this author would like to keep you as readers in mind for the next upcoming foreseeable future of the major rebrand. However, nevertheless, here comes a series of questions time. So, what do you readers think about this way of communication or way of expression? Do you think it is well justified? And also, what do you think of the stigma that seems to present to those who seem as though they are disenfranchised just simply from the way they speak, or from the way they write, or from the way they communicate to one another amidst our social media spaces today, not just within the realms of internet, but also within real-life communication settings? Let us know your thoughts down in the comment section below. In the internet's least visited independent thoughts in wellness and decentralized nutritional science. Leave it forward, and thank you for watching.